Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to begin chapter 25, which is about the reproductive system. We are going to be starting with the male reproductive system, and this will be the first part of that. Okay, what you are seeing is a view of the male reproductive system from the side. What you will notice is that there are a number of different structures like the pubic bone, the bladder, and things like that that are not part of the reproductive system. However, they are put into the picture so that you can identify where the different structures and things are. You need to know the structures. Okay, so you're going to receive a handout that has this picture on it. You need to be able to know it. Okay, where you see names in parentheses, right here, like foreskin and Cowper's gland, they are alternate names for the same structure. So be aware of that you need to be able to know the different structures, names. Okay, now we are going to be starting straight out and talking about some of the functions of the exterior structures. Specifically, we are going to be talking about the scrotum. Now, the scrotum is this right here that you see, which is basically a pouch-like structure which holds the testes. Singular is testis. And the function of the scrotum is to regulate the temperature of the testis because there is a very specific temperature at which sperm are best produced. And the body naturally raises and lowers the testes in order to make them at that temperature. So the scrotum actually raises and lowers. The temperature that the sperm produce best at is actually colder than the human body temperature. Human body temperature is usually between 97 and 99 degrees during an average day. Sperm actually thrive best at about 93 degrees. So the scrotum actually usually is holding the testes farther away from the body so that sperm production will be correct. Okay, now on this you can see that is the reproductive structures from the front. You have the scrotum that comes down like this. You have the testes on both sides. And the structure that raises and lowers the scrotum and the testes is called the cremaster muscle. Okay? And that actually, like I said, raises and lowers the testes in order to keep the testes at the proper temperature for sperm production. Okay, so if someone is cold, the testes will be lifted towards the body. If they are hot, it will be lowered away from the body to a point. Okay, now you need to, like I said, learn the structures in the first. There are some duplicates on this. You do not need to memorize this, not as far as the picture is concerned. However, we will be talking about some of the structures that are found in both of the images. So just be aware of what you're looking at, that when you look at the front picture and the one from the side, that you have everything duplicated. Now, today we specifically are going to follow starting at the beginning of the pathway. And what we'll do is we'll talk about each of the structures that are involved as we follow the sperm through the pathway from creation until release. Okay. This right here is a singular testis. And what you will notice is you have this structure right here that is on the testis, and it is known as the epididymis. Epi, you should remember, is on, and didymis, if you know your Bible, Thomas was known as Didymus. Didymus means twin. So this structure right here is on the twins, the testes. Okay? So that's this structure right here that you see on the testes, and you can see it up here in the picture as well. Now, this right here is a testis. Inside of the testis, you have what are called seminiferous tubules, and you can see all these tiny little tubes. Now, the reality is as small as the artist tried to draw these, they are smaller still. One of these tubes is approximately 2 feet long. Okay, and there are multiples of these because they have to have a high surface area in order to be able to make to make the sperm. Okay, so we're getting smaller and smaller here. So now what we're going to do, now that you know this is the testis and the epididymis, we're going to even go smaller into the seminiferous tubules to look at a cross section. Okay, so this right here on the left is one of the seminiferous tubules, and you can see that there's a cross section of it, and this right here is a close-up of that cross section. Now, what you first will notice is over here on the right, they have all these arrows pointing every which way. This is a process called spermatogenesis. In other words, genesis, remember beginning, obviously sperm, which by the way means seed. Okay, so this is the beginning or the creation of the seed. Okay, now the reason they have these parallel like this is because of the actual position of the cells in the seminiferous tubule. Okay, up here it talks about a germ cell. That basically means a cell that is at the beginning. It's not really going to be a sperm or anything yet. It's ahead of time. Okay, so it goes through, it starts its thing, and it gets ready to divide. Once it divides, you have the spermatogonium, this cell right here, and you usually have 2 because it's by mitosis. This one here is basically going to do the same thing as this one, so they don't bother to write it all twice. Okay, so this one, the spermatogonium, gonium just kind of like means beginning. You can see it up here on the outer edge of the seminiferous tubule. So if you were looking at it, it would be right near the outside of the seminiferous tubule. Now, as that spermatogonium develops, it becomes a spermatocyte. Okay, you can see if you look at the picture, the spermatocyte is now closer to the center of the seminiferous tubule. Okay, and when it divides and becomes the secondary spermatocyte, it's even getting closer down to the edge of the inside lining. And then when it divides again and becomes the spermatids, they are right on the inner part of the lining of the seminiferous tubule, which by the way, the space in the middle is called the lumen. Anytime you have a space in the middle of a tube, it's called a lumen. Okay, so what it is they're starting out way over on the edge of the seminiferous tubules, and as they develop, they get pushed further and further towards the lumen, towards the center. And by the time they become mature sperm, they are right with their tails sticking into the lumen. And you can see that in the picture over here if you look carefully. Okay, so they start at the outside, and as they develop, they get pushed further and further in. Now, what you may have noticed is that there's always these two cells. Okay, you're not seeing individual cells. There's always two of these. Okay, the reason for that is because you have what are called Sertoli cells. And these Sertoli cells, capitalized, get to name it, is also known as a nurse cell. And the Sertoli cell's entire function is to produce the food and create everything that the sperm cell will need. The sperm cell does not make food, it does not create energy, it does not do anything other than consume energy and develop. All of the cell functions are done by the Sertoli cells. Okay, so they will take care of the cell that is going to become the sperm. Now, surrounding every seminiferous tubule, you have the Leydig cells. And these Leydig cells are what are going to actually produce testosterone. And we're going to have to talk about the hormone testosterone as well as some others when we're talking about the processes related to male reproduction. Okay? Now, what we're going to talk about last for today is the actual structure of a sperm. Okay. It is primarily divided into three sections. You have the head, the midsection or midpiece, and the tail. The head, remember this is a cell, is the nucleus of the cell. You have the centrioles that are left over from the cell division. And you have this thing called an acrosome up at the very, very point. The acrosome actually contains digestive enzymes that will help the sperm enter the egg. The center right here, the midpiece, contains many, many, many mitochondria, which, if you'll remember, are the function as creating energy for a cell. Currently, before the sperm is released, they do not do anything. They simply sit there non-functional. The tail, right through here, is referred to as a flagellum. It has some other names, but tail is fine. And it has basically a membrane that surrounds the whole thing. The picture that you see up here is an electron microscope photograph of what a sperm cell actually looks like. Okay, we will talk more about sperm as we follow them through their pathway of the male reproductive system. Until next time.